I'm Kyle Malnati, your host of the Calibrate Real Estate Podcast. At Calibrate, we exist to help people create generational wealth through real estate. My personal mission is to encourage, empower, and educate you by sharing best practices from business leaders that are proven winners. Broadcasting from the Mile High City, thank you for tuning in to the Calibrate Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Malnati. Our esteemed guest today, Zack Boothe. Zack's an expert real estate investor and coach. Obviously, the real estate investing piece is where he's made quite a bit of headway, and now he's coaching others. Zack, welcome to our show. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kyle. It's good to be here.
So you're based in Salt Lake, Utah, a little bit north of there, and so we're neighbors, neighboring states. And let's talk about kind of the key mistakes that you walk a lot of real estate investors through that you've probably learned from some bumps and bruises in your own journey of doing wholesale investing. When you work with a real estate coaching client and they're really interested in getting into the investing world, what are some common mistakes that people make?
Well, I think there's a lot of mistakes, right? I mean, if it was really easy, everyone would be able to find success. But I think one of the main things that I see happen when new people come into real estate investing, or even wanting to be agents, right? Wanting to get in the real estate space, there's information overwhelm. There's like a gazillion choices, right? You can do wholesaling, you can do flipping, you can do subject to financing, you can do seller finance, you can do lease options, you can do sandwich lease options, you can do, I mean, the endless, right? I go on for like 10 minutes like that, right? And so with all of those different strategies comes little nuances and different things. And so there's information overload. It's like, okay, where do I start? And then once they kind of do figure out where they want to go, let's say they want to be agents or they want to be wholesalers or flippers, right? They say they pick one, but then it's like, well, now how do I learn that? And then it's information overload there. And so I think for the most part, people just feel too overwhelmed. They don't really know where to go. And then if they do decide what they want to do, they don't really know who to trust or what advice to take because there's so much conflicting information, let's say just for wholesalers. So I think that's one of the biggest things they deal with.
On that idea, a good segue into my next question is that when we were preparing for the show, we were both kind of rapping about what books we like. You've got some books over your shoulder. I do too. And I think that anybody that's in the space of being a thought leader, certainly someone that's a coach, any successful person I've ever met is an avid reader. And I believe that leaders are readers. I'd love to hear some of your favorite books here in a minute, but just what about the process of reading has helped you get to where you are today? And if someone is just getting started in this journey of the real estate world, what are some things that you would suggest as they start to do, maybe some research on their own for great books and just things that you've gleaned from some great authors in the real estate space?
Man, such a good topic. It's funny because not a lot of people talk about, I've been on the podcast train lately, right? And not a lot of people talk about these books and readers are leaders. I totally believe that. So for the longest time, I had this limiting belief that I was stupid. So I had to hustle really hard, which is good because I learned to have a work ethic, but it wasn't good because I wasn't educating myself. I dropped out of college. I had a window cleaning business. I thought I was stupid. And it wasn't until I started reading, and listening to books or I actually didn't start reading. I started listening to books and podcasts. And then I was like, oh, I need to start reading because I wasn't retaining. And then I read an awesome book called this. Oh, it's actually right here. Look at that. This book right here, Stephen Covey, seven habits of highly effective, or seven highly effective people, or the 7 habits of highly effective people. And in there, he talks about how to retain information. And he talks about whenever we learn something, we prepare to teach it, because whenever we teach, we learn and retain more. And so now in every single book that I read, I have my own little glossary of gold nuggets. So like this, so just in that book, that's my glossary. So every single book that I have in my office, you can open it up and see Zach's gold nuggets that he got out of it in the moment he read it. But I can promise you, if I pick up that same book 6 months later, a year later, I'm going to get a whole different thing of gold nuggets. Because my situation in my life, my personal life or my business life, I'm going to have new things that are going to jump out to me and tell me, hey, this is where you need to make adjustments. Because like the saying goes, when the teacher or the student's ready, the master will appear, right? It's because we have different experiences along our path that open us up to learn more. right? There's the 4 levels of learning. There's the things we don't know that we don't know, biggest realm, right? But then let's say something happens, someone comes along, we read a book, and then we learn about something that we don't know anything about. So now we know about something we don't know. And then it gets to the stage of we think we know something, right? But we're not really accomplishing it. Like, let's say a lot of people think they know what wholesaling is, but they're not wholesaling. They don't really know. The people that know wholesaling are the ones that are doing it. And so our growth as people is an evolution, right? And to the point where we're living it and doing it. And so without reading, we're not opening up our minds to things we don't know about, right? We're not, and then we're also not being guided by people that have accomplished and are doing what we're trying to do and accomplish. And so I read a lot. I'm currently reading a book called Killing Sacred Cows. Can't remember the author. And I've got Retention Point is one I ordered last night, but I'll read 2 to 3 books a month right now, which I would read more, but I also feel like you have to have that balance between learning and implementation. So, but yeah, I love reading. I think if you're not reading, it's a huge mistake.
For those of you that are listening in on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you're probably not seeing this. I want to make sure that you don't miss a key point that Zach made just a minute or two ago. Inside of his book, he's got bullet pointed notes of key takeaways from that reading session. And I love that. I would say that the thing that I think about as I see you doing that is start treating your books as field guides. Think about yourself. If you're someone that's trying to learn on some variety of different subjects, think about these books as waypoints that will get you to your next destination. And I just love that. And if you're anything like me, Zach, I've done this, and I know one of the books that it's on your bookshelf over your shoulder there is Good to Great by Jim Collins. And I've read that book multiple times, and each couple of years I bring that book back up. I've got notes in the margin. I've got highlights. I've got different things that I come back to, and I'm like, man, that was such a big deal at that time in 2015. And, zoom through a bunch of years later, no longer a big deal.
For sure. And one more thing too that I want, I kind of briefly touched on, when we read something to teach it and we actually teach it, we retain way more. So all these glossary notes are wonderful for me to recap and remember what I put, but actually they're bullet points for me to teach other people. So I'm sharing these things on my social media platforms, on my Instagram, on my TikToks. And then also I have 2 different businesses. I have my coaching business and I have my wholesaling business, and I have employees for both. And every week we have a team meeting, and we always end the team meetings with something we learned, a gold nugget from a podcast, a book. And I encourage every single person to share something, because then they grow, because they're retaining more by sharing with us. We all learn from them as well. And then we also get to share what we learn, right? And retain, and we grow together, right? I want to empower other people that work for me. And so I actually teach what I learn as well. Always. I always find a way to teach and bless someone else. And so if you want to join a book club or something to share this kind of stuff, or have an accountability partner, you share gold nuggets of what you're learning, it'll really, really help you actually retain and implement way better. So,
Zach, what great advice for our Calibrate crew that may have staff members, they may be leading a team, they may be working with junior brokers. What a great way to recap a weekly meeting and say, what's something that you learned this week that you observed, obviously in a book would be great. But I remember one of my very first mentor in the professional world would constantly ask me on a daily basis, especially the first year I was working for him in my very early 20s. He'd say, what were your learning experiences today? What'd you learn today? What happened? Where'd you mess up? What are you not going to do again? Those are all great pieces of information. A minute ago, Zach, you had said and shared, and I agree. And I think you're going to probably teach me quite a few things about wholesaling. There's a lot of maybe misconceptions about what wholesaling is or isn't. So let's go through just bullet points of what people need to know about wholesaling, and maybe what are some of the common misconceptions that you don't find accurate.
yeah, so I'm going to start by talking about wholesaling in a general sense as part of one of the strategies within real estate investing, right? So I was reading a book, and I had bought a duplex. I was living in one half, and I was trying to get into this, get out of window cleaning, right? And I was really struggling to do that. and was having obstacles to buy more rentals because I needed 25% down. I didn't qualify there. My debt to income didn't work because I was a window washer and I was, wasn't loaded. And I didn't know how to go forward. So I'm reading, right? And I'm listening to podcasts, and I read a book. It's called Multifamily Millions. Can't remember the author. And he's talking about giant multifamily syndications. I mean, $1 million deals. And he said something very interesting. He said, real estate investing is marketing. If you can't get that between your two ears, you will not be in business for long. And so I don't care if you're trying to do real estate wholesaling, if you're trying to flip houses, if you're trying to buy rentals, if you're trying to do giant multifamily syndication deals, or just list properties for someone else as a real estate agent. You have to do marketing. You have to do leads. This is a marketing and sales business, right? And our product is real estate. And so when I learned that, I went, aha. And I knew that I had to have marketing in place. And so I got into real estate wholesaling because I saw it as an opportunity to get really good at finding off-market discounted properties. And if I could get good at finding off-market discounted properties where I get to negotiate directly with the seller on the terms of the property, whether it's seller finance or a cash offer at a lower price, I got to figure out what the needs of the seller were. I could make an offer that fit. And if it didn't fit my own personal portfolio, I could then assign it to someone else for a profit, right? And that was very attractive because it equaled cash flow to pay for my marketing. I could afford a team, and then I could say, hey, team, I like that deal. I want that one for me. Plus, I could get deals for $1, $5,000, $2,000 down, and get large amounts of net worth immediately and cash flow, right? It just didn't exist on the MLS. And a lot of the misconception is wholesalers take advantage of other people, right? Wholesalers are taken advantage of, or they're taking away from agents, real estate agents or brokers, right? That it's in the seller's best interest to list with an agent or with a broker. Which is silly to me for an agent to make that analysis, because you should actually ask the seller what their best interest is, right? They're automatically telling the seller what their best interest is, when we're actually, as agents, you're supposed to listen to the sellers. But they, like, for some reason, wholesalers do a lot better job at that, I think, for the most part, than agents, because they wouldn't do deals if they didn't. So a lot of times when someone calls us off a piece of marketing, we'll say, okay, fantastic. You want to sell your house. Sounds like it needs a lot of work. Well, why don't you fix it up and list it with an agent, get more? And if they say, I thought about doing that, it's like, well, that might actually be best option. I'm an investor. I'm going to do that and make a bunch of money doing that. Or bring in a partner and make a bunch of money. Would you rather, draw it out and spend the time and money and effort and make more? Or would you rather have it done now? And a lot of them say, I want it done now. Okay, well, then I'll work with you. Let's meet, right? So we let them choose, right? And like good wholesalers, they give options and let the people choose. And so a lot of the time, actually majority of the time, they say, well, I actually think I want to list it and get full retail. And we go, okay, great. And I have an agent that does all my listings, and he gets a lot of listings from me. So I think a lot of agents miss out by fighting wholesalers instead of like, hey, what about the retail leads you have? Let's work together, right? And then once you do have a deal that you keep yourself and you want to list, I could list it for you for a discount. Like, you make it work, right? You work together and you both benefit. It's collaboration, not competition. And I had the same fear about getting into wholesaling because it sounded shady to be able to make that kind of money, 10, 20, even $100,000 assigning a purchase contract. I thought, why would anyone ever sell at a discount? And I had paid for a mentor. I paid 10 grand, put it on a credit card, never did a deal. Very painful, very painful. It was a good learning experience. But a few years later, after I had given up, I was still listening to some podcasts and stuff, but I hadn't completely given up on the idea of getting into real estate, but I kind of given up on the idea of wholesaling, of like finding off-market discounted properties. Like, that doesn't exist. That's a scam, right? I became a skeptic, which I'm not very happy about because I missed out on a lot of years of success, right? And but anyways, I was washing windows for this extremely wealthy gentleman. He was a developer, and he had 2 multi-million-dollar developments, single-family developments. And when I found this out when I was washing his windows, I was like, oh, tell me more. And I just listened for like an hour, and he told me a story and how he'd retired from being a civil engineer in his 20s, and just an intriguing guy. And cleaning this giant mansion, just dreaming of one day having that kind of success. And I was like, man, I would love to pick up 2 rentals this year. And at that time I had my duplex and I had bought a single family home that I was living in. And I didn't qualify for more loans. I didn't qualify, and I didn't have down payments, 25%, 20% down. I didn't qualify for more, but I wanted 2 more rentals. I had set a goal to do that year, and it was already September. I didn't know if I was ever going to do it, but I had set that goal. And he's like, "Oh, that's convenient. I've got 2 properties I'd like to sell." I was like, "Okay, great. How much?" He said, $500,000. It's like they were at a discount, but still, I didn't, $500,000. It's like, "That's awesome. I couldn't get a loan for that." He said, "That's okay. I'll be your bank." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Oh, that sounds great." He's like, "And by the way, I'm going to give you a really good price too." I was like, "Okay." He's like, "How much can you put down?" I was like, $2,000. Like that's not even close to enough, right? In my mind. And he's like, "Oh, I'd like more, but I can make that work. I like you." And I put him under contract, and I quickly put tenants in place that had an option to buy it. And I would make it, if they both exercise their right to buy the house, I would make well over $100,000 profit. And I put this deal together, and like, I was so terrified when he said, "Yeah, let's do it." And he started writing out the agreement on a piece of blank white paper. And I was like, "Whoa, we need an attorney." Like, hold on a minute. The fear starts kicking in, like, this is getting real. And then I'm like, holy moly, like this is happening. Like, this dude is way more educated, way more money than me. And I just did a 6-figure deal. Like, this is real. This can happen over and over. Was he capable of listing it with an agent? Yes. Did he know that he would get more? Yes. You know what I mean? Like, the dude had millions of dollars in development deals. He knew way more than me. And so when that happened, I realized that people trade convenience for price all the time. And I recently proved this point even further on my YouTube channel. I went to an affluent neighborhood and I went door to door and I said, "Do you have anything in your garage you'd like to get rid of? I have a mobile pawn shop." And I bought like a go-kart and a whole bunch of cool stuff. And I spent $500 and doubled my money in an hour and a half. Right? Just to show that people trade convenience for price. And so as wholesalers, we're trying to find that very, very small portion of the marketplace, of the real estate market space, that people just want to be done quick. And a lot of agents know this as pocket listings, and inexperienced agents know that exists, right? But instead of an agent getting the property and having 4 or 5 cash buyers in their back pocket and they get a nice 3 to 6% for helping that seller out, we get it under contract as low as they're willing to go to serve their needs. And then we have lists of thousands of cash buyers and investor friendly agents, and we blast it out and get as much as we can per deal. So it's a very simple process. It has worked very well for me. Very, very well.
What a cool story. And thank goodness that affluent businessman, real estate developer took you under his wing. And I mean, can you imagine where you would be if that situation didn't happen?
I'd still be a skeptic, brother. I'd still
Well,
be the guy listening to this going, that's all bull crap, right?
well, and Zach, as you talk about your YouTube channel, let's give the audience an opportunity to figure out how they can follow you. How do people find you on YouTube?
For sure. So my YouTube channel is DFD Mastery. And I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm starting a podcast, right? And I'm doing all this. Why? So I had a lot of success from wholesaling, right? And it came from great mentors, and it was awesome, right? My first year we did about 100,000. Next year, just shy of $500,000. Next year, 1.2 million. We're gonna do about another million this year. We should do 2 million next year with my second market, right? So all that's great. Nobody cares how much success I have. Ultimately, only people just want to have success for themselves, right? And I'm on this podcast to give you guys success and to help serve you guys. So I want to talk about why the YouTube channel is beneficial to you guys, and why I put out so much content. Towards the end of 2018, I'd done just about $500,000 in income, right, from wholesaling. And I'd cherry picked a handful of rentals too, right? I mean, my net worth had just, I walked in the bank, wrote a $50,000 check, paid off debts, took my wife to Brazil for a month to be with her family. And I was there, and it was wonderful. And like, I had all this freedom, but I wanted to do more. I wanted to get to $1 million the next year. I had no idea how. And I had a friend invite me to do a self-help journal called Living Your Best Year Ever. And in there it said I had to give away whatever I wanted to receive. So I had to give away $1 million. I wanted to take it serious. And I thought, how the hell do I give away money I don't have? Right. And frankly, I don't necessarily, it didn't sit right with me giving away $1 million, because it's like, I believe in giving someone a fishing pole, not a fish. Right. And so it's like, well, what do I do? And I was talking to my wife, and it's like, well, Zach, your business went from $100,000 to $500,000 because your marketing system, from your Driving for Dollars marketing system. Why don't you just teach that? And it's like, aha. So I started teaching it. I brought on like 10 guinea pig students, made them pay me. So I knew that they were going to follow through and take me serious. Right. We started implementing their system. One of my students' first deal, $113,000 profit deal. Right. And I started having students absolutely crushing it. And the coolest thing happened. The more I taught, the more I learned. It's just like what Stephen Covey said: if you want to retain, you teach. Right. And so I started teaching and helping other people. And the more I taught, the more problems I found with my own business. And the more I started serving my students, the more it required me to find people to take my positions within my wholesaling business. So then I built out this beautiful team and this beautiful system. We did $1.2 million that year because I was focused on coaching, which is kind of counterintuitive, right? I never imagined that that would be the situation. But more than anything, more important to me than the money that I made was the fulfillment that I got from coaching. There is something special about helping someone that's been where you've been and help them find success that they've always dreamed of. Like, that helper's pie is so much like I remember the first wholesale deal I did. I sold the contract. I got a $10,000 check. I posted the picture of that bad boy everywhere. I was so excited. It meant the world. I was still in the red very much in how much I'd spent on coaching and everything, but it was proof of concept, and I was going to take care of my family. And my wife was proud of me, and I was proud of me, and I wanted to tell everybody, but then the second deal was cool. And the third deal was a lot of work. And I don't remember the fourth deal. But every time I help a student do their first deal, I get that feeling from my first deal and then some, right? It brings tears to my eyes all the time. And, I take it very seriously. I have a picture of all my students on my office wall. This is just my recording studio. And then out on my main lobby, I have my success wall. So as soon as I help my students do a deal, I get to move them out onto my success wall. And I absolutely love it. It's what I do every day. I spend all my time on that. I am wholesaling in 2 different markets, but I find so much fulfillment by my YouTube channel. We kind of talked a little bit off, before this, that, how do I inspire people and show people the bowl, and, not just be like, like, I didn't want to just be this commercial. I wanted to be like, hey, here's the permission. Like, I got blessed by meeting Stan, right, who gave me those 2 off-market properties and opened my eyes to the potential. And I wanted someone else to be able to see, for their eyes to be open to the potential. So it's like, how do I do that? How do I give someone else that gift that I was given? And I thought, you know what? Here's an idea. And so I'm going to take $1,000. And my goal is to turn that $1,000 into $40,000 in 40 days doing real estate wholesaling. I'm going to fly to a new market, taking my family with me. And I fly out here in just a couple of weeks, actually. And I'm going to have a few basic things put together. I'm going to have my cash buyers list, my purchase contract, title company, and attorney lined up. That's it. And then I'm going to start from scratch from there, trying to find leads, closing them, find a buyer, and make 40 grand in 40 days. So, and all that's going to be shared on my YouTube channel. So that's something I'm working on right now.
Well, stay tuned for that. And Zach, I've got to commend you. And then also, just my curious mind has this question: what is it about you that wants to go door knocking and talk to people about stuff in their garage that you could sell, in your mobile pawn shop? And what is it that makes you curious about going to a new market and trying to get 40x return on $1,000? And what is it about those experiences that really drives you?
Do I want to go knock doors to buy stuff and then sell it? No, it's horrible. Do I want to go to a new market and live in an Airbnb for 2 months when I don't have to, because I have financial freedom? Like, I could go to the Bahamas for 2 months, right? Will I make less money in the short term by doing this? 100%. Right? If I just focus all my efforts on me and my wholesaling business, would it grow more? Yeah, in the short term. But I think long term, I'll be blessed and then some, right? Because I'm going to add so much value to other people. So yes, I understand that what I do will provide value to me. But like I said, I get so much more fulfillment off of serving other people than I do off of just making more money. Like, there's a certain level of money that you make that, like, why go to work? Why go to work? I spent over a decade on my window cleaning business. From the outside looking in, very successful. Ended up on the History Channel, had a YouTube video with 10 million views. I had 3 trucks, 13 employees. It looked like I knew what I was doing, but I was freaking risking my life every single day for a few bucks. My rotator cuff was going out, right? I really was living paycheck to paycheck. I didn't have any idea of investments. I wasn't educating myself like I wanted to be. And more than anything, I wasn't really helping anybody. Yeah, I was cleaning some windows, but like it didn't fulfill me. Like some people, like that's all they want to do. That's fine. But for me, I just wasn't happy. I wasn't content. And, you know, let me give you an example. I purchased the YouTube channel back, the window cleaning YouTube channel. After I sold the company, I've actually bought that. And I did some videos to teach some young kids how to make some money with window cleaning. This 15-year-old kid messaged me on Instagram. Thank you so much for the content. I went door knocking, got some jobs, and I think he made like $80 in a couple hours. And I started crying because I just taught that young man that he is more than capable of taking care of himself and going out and getting uncomfortable and making some money. And he's going to take that confidence and take it into whatever else that he finds passion for. And for me, there's a wonderful book. So look, remember my little list of gold nuggets. Here's a gold nugget for you. Page 76 in what is this one? Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. He said, he actually quotes a different book, in, if I remember right, I think that's what it is.
Yeah. And while you're looking at that for our
Yep.
audience, my career coach a long time ago, who was on episode 100 of this show, is a guy named Rory Vaden. And Rory, when he was coaching me for 1 year, that was the very first book he asked me to read was Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv Eker. Great book. Go check that out. Sorry, I
Fantastic.
interrupted you there, Zach, but
No,
go
it's
ahead.
a great book. I actually shared a ton of gold nuggets of this book on my TikTok over the last few weeks. And so great book. So here we go. So he quotes a book by Maureen Williamson. It's called Return to Love. I'm just going to read the paragraph he shared. He said, "You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about you shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. Were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our light shine, unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. We are liberated from our own fear. Our presence automatically liberates others." And so I found so much joy and fulfillment in sharing this content and encouraging other people to change their lives. And a lot of times it just gives them that permission, right? Like, how many times do we have this cool idea that we bring to our family and they're like, oh, that's risky. Oh, that's a bad idea, right? Like, then they don't go for their dreams. I was just listening to a podcast the other day, School of Greatness. It was a podcast. I like that podcast a lot.
Yeah, Lewis House.
Yeah, Lewis, good dude. He was interviewing what's his name? Kevin Hart. I'm gonna be nice. I didn't think he was very funny at first, right? And then I watched him in Jumanji. He's funny. He's a funny dude. But I didn't realize how much I liked him as a person until I listened to that podcast. I have tons of love and respect for that guy. And he shared in there his story. He wanted to be a comedian, but all of his friends, everyone around him said, there's no money. There's so much risk. There's so much competition. Who are you to be successful? But he knew that he loved it and he was passionate about it. And so he went for it, right? And he saw other people being successful. That gave him permission. So when we are successful, we give other people permission to go for it, right? When that's their dream and their passion. And so, my love for teaching and coaching, it's 100% based and centered around hoping that I make an impact in at least somebody's life, right? And so that's why I get up in the morning. That's why I coach. That's why I'm creating 60 TikToks a week and 3 YouTube videos a week. And I'm going to Florida for 20 days and having that documented because I truly want to serve people. Yes, I'm a real estate coach. Yes, I'm getting paid to coach people, but I don't have to create all that awesome content to be a coach and to make a lot of money doing it, right? This is 100% a mission driven business and what I love to do 100%.
Gosh, I'd love all that. And I love your heart for wanting to just help people and impact people because I think that's one of the greatest ways that we can show that the people who've helped us, their advice wasn't lost.
Yep.
And if you can continue to pass that along, it's such a great message that people that are striving and feel like they're the ones that need to sit next to the sage or the wise person in whatever field they're in. It's such a good reminder that you need to be taught, but you also need to be teaching at the same time. And you need to constantly be looking for that person who's a step or two behind you as you're seeking out advice from the person that's a step or two ahead of you.
100%. Like if you guys get any value from this, share it. Like if you guys get any value from this, implement it and pass the knowledge and things that you learn on to someone else. Bless someone else's life. Like it reminds me of a story that just happened recently. Brian Hemmerly's a student in Louisville, Kentucky. Got him into wholesaling, doing very well, right? Well, he had a friend, and I advise my people to give, teach, help, right? Like I want you to help other people. Like I said, this is mission driven and I want it to trickle. Like you just said, Kyle, that the best thing for a mentor is when your students then start to teach and to serve other people as well, because then you know that your input is starting to snowball, right? It's starting to get growth beyond. So when I die, my impact in this world will never die. And so Brian Hemmerly brought Michael Brown in and kind of showed Michael Brown a few things. Michael Brown did his first wholesale deal, made 25 grand, and he was flipping houses at the time, but he's like, wow, wholesaling is way better. And he went to Brian and he said, hey, I want, more help, coach me some more. And Brian's like, dude, like, I'm glad you made the 25 grand. Just go join Zach's program. Like he's going to be like who you need. So he came into the program a couple months ago, and he just closed the biggest wholesale deal of any of my students, $114,500 profit deal on a multifamily deal. How cool is it that already in just a few years of coaching that students are helping new students? And I feel like I'm building this tribe of people that are serving and blessing each other. I have a Facebook group just for my students, and they're answering each other's questions and celebrating the wins. And it's just it's so fulfilling, man. Like I'm so immensely grateful in life right now because the money was wonderful, and not having to worry about how I'm going to pay for my kids' medical bills and like the necessities of life, to now it's like, okay, how do I take this money and do something more with it? And I'm just so grateful I got to this point and I pushed through all those obstacles and those really uncomfortable moments to get here.
Probably an obvious question, but I've got to ask it. How do people find your program, Zach? How do they get plugged in if they want and need some coaching from you?
Yeah. So my website, dfdmastery.com, has a bunch of free resources. Plus, it has a link to all my social media. All that stuff's free, right? I want to serve you and bless you. And maybe you won't connect with me very well. Like maybe you don't want me to be your coach. That's fine, right? I really only take a limited amount of students. And it's by application only, because I do spend personal time with my students. And so that's why it's that way. But if you want to apply, on my website, there's a button that says book a call. You click on that button, fill out the questionnaire, and schedule a time. And either myself or one of my onboarding coaches will talk to you and see if it's a fit, right? So that's how you can apply for the program. But like I said, follow me on social media regardless. And, hopefully the content that I provide for you guys will help you in some way.
Awesome. dfdmastery.com. Best place to go. Before I ask our final two questions, I just have a personal question. In your bio, I read, and then we were talking about this before we started, that you enjoy spending time with your wife and your two kids, hiking around the mountains. And you said specifically anywhere where you can go, where it's remote, you're by yourself, you're disconnected. What about that experience is really important for you? Just kind of getting out in the woods and spending some time with your family.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a major outdoorsman, so it's just kind of part of my life growing up. So like my mom, like this is crazy. My mom, I shouldn't even tell you guys this, should be like, man, this dude is a complete hillbilly. But my mom shot her first big game animal with a bow and arrow when she was pregnant with me. right? And like this year, I showed up to their camp up in Idaho, southern Idaho, and they're like, "We're so glad you're here. Mom shot this giant bear with her bow, and we need your help to pack it out." Because my parents are like 60 now, you know, and it's just them. And my dad had hurt his back. And so I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm like carrying this 100-pound pack out of the deep, dark forest. And you know, I've spent a lot of time in the mountains, and I've learned to have kind of an emotional and spiritual connection with nature because of it. You know, I harvest the animals for meat. It's a very personal thing. Like, and I know a lot of people don't like hunting, and so I don't talk about it that much. But since you do bring it up, like it's something that's very important to me. But it's also another way to challenge myself mentally and emotionally and physically. You know, when you go in 8-9 miles with just what you can carry on your back by yourself, it's all up to you. And there's no one to tell you to go home. There's no one to tell you that you have to stay. And so when you have a trip that's planned for 5 days and you're 3 days in and you're exhausted and you can barely walk because you hurt so bad, like then it becomes a mental game. Like it's a pretty wild experience, honestly, to spend, you know, a lot of time in the mountains by yourself. So, but I'm all over the Western US doing this kind of stuff now because of the freedom I have with my businesses.
I'm glad you shared that story. I can think of two things. One is good old Jeff Foxworthy. You might be a redneck if your mom shot a big game animal while she was pregnant with you. So that's a good one. And then the other is one of my favorite shows on Netflix is Meat Eater, which is you know, it's a little gory, and obviously if you're a vegetarian, probably not your cup of tea, but really cool docu series about Steven Ranella and what
Yeah.
he does to get out there and live off the land and fill your
He's a
freezer.
great advocate for hunting and conservation and what hunting is. And yeah, that's a great one. It's a
Yeah,
great
I
one.
love it. Well, we're both Rocky Mountain guys. We've had this mountaintop experience. We're going to come down the mountain here with these last two questions. Zach, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, first question, and it comes from a song that I really personally enjoy called Dear Younger Me. And sort of the premise of the song, I've made this part up. It's not in the song, but it's this advice you wish you knew when you were 22. The writers of the song are basically contemplating advice that they would give themselves now that they've lived some life. So when you interact, especially with students that are in their 20s, what's probably the most common piece of advice that you give someone that's about 22 years old?
I'm going to give you the same advice that my uncle gave me. I call him Junkle Jeff. Just, I love him, dude. He's a wild one. He's always full of jokes and just high spirited. Just love the guy. But I would call him and I was like, Uncle Jeff, what are you doing? He's like, I'm just doing the business, son. Always doing the business. And he would always tell me, he said, Zach, you have to earn and learn. You say, earn and learn, young man. You always got to earn and learn. And I think so many times at 22 years old, all we've heard our whole lives is go to school, get a degree, get a safe, secure job. Working for the government's even better if you can. Right. And that's the worst financial advice you can get, because you're going to get stuck in a job you hate. You're not going to give 100%, because you don't give 100%. You don't add a crazy amount of value, and you're not going to rise to the occasion. Right. You're better off to find something you're passionate about and go 100% in. If that's stand-up comedy like Kevin Hart, do that. Right. But you have to earn and learn at the same time. Find mentors, find books, find podcasts, educate yourself, and work relentlessly. Be relentless. And so you need to earn and learn at the same time. That requires work ethic, and that requires the discipline to educate yourself and put the money, and if it's required, to education. I wished I would have done that much sooner in my life. It wasn't until my late 20s that I really took that advice to heart. I mean, I did work hard, but I always told myself I was too stupid, so I had to hustle. And it wasn't till late in my 20s that I started reading books and then started paying for mentors. And um, you know, you live and learn, I guess. But that was one of the things I wish I'd have known earlier.
Great advice, Zach. Thank you for that. The follow-up question actually comes from that first question. So a couple of parallels here, a couple of tie-ins to our discussion. This is a question in memory of one of my most recent coaches, a guy named Chris Oakley. And Chris tragically passed away last year in a hunting accident. And the way that he answered that question when he was on episode 5 of this show, long before he had passed away last year. He said to me that he was in a group, a mentoring group in his 20s. The leader of that group had everybody read The Principle of the Path, which is a book by Andy Stanley. And in that book, Andy Stanley has his readers write their own obituary as a way, and this dovetails to Stephen Covey, of course, think of the end in mind, keep the end in mind. And that process really led Chris on a 10-year journey where he was coaching business owners like myself and really helping empower business owners. So the question I ask is flipped a little bit, not obituary, but if your wife or one of your kids, as you hopefully have lived many decades, coached thousands and thousands and maybe millions of people, if they're delivering your eulogy at your funeral, what would you hope that they would say about you? What would you hope your legacy that you would be remembered by, Zach?
Yeah, it's funny because like that section that I read out of the T. Harv Eker book, of giving people permission. So my uncle, when I was 17, I told my uncle, the same one that said, "Earn and learn, young man," right? Junkle Jeff. He said, I called him and I said, "Uncle, I want to start a business. I want to start my own business. I'm tired of working for others. I started working when I was 11 for the family lawn mowing business, right? I didn't grow up with money. I was required to work. It was not an option. I was cut off financially at 16, right? So grateful for that. But so already at 17, after doing framing and finish carpentry and making handcrafted cheese and taxidermy and working in Nova Scotia, Canada, I mean, I had been around, right? I was a seasoned employee and I was done. And so I called my uncle and I said, "Uncle, I've been looking at business models and like different business ideas, like thinking about starting a window cleaning business. Is there any money in that?" He's like, "Oh, sure. People in Park City and he's like, I've washed windows before and you can make quite a bit and go for it." So it gave me that permission, right? It gave me that encouragement to go for it. And I love my parents and they taught me to work hard, but my dad wouldn't even sign the paperwork to get my license, my business license, and to get insured because he was afraid of the liability, rightly so, right? And I fell off a ladder and broke my foot, and I told him I did it playing basketball because I didn't want him to tell me to quit, and but if I wouldn't have had that uncle in the beginning that gave me that permission, I don't know if I would have started. And so my hope is that I inspire a lot of people to go for it. I hope that when I die, people will say, "That Zach guy gave me that permission to change my life." So grateful for that. And that they take that and take that responsibility on themselves to pass the permission on to someone else. And so I want to continue to pass down what my uncle gave me.
Zach, what a great way to end our show. It's so interesting. We were supposed to have a discussion about real estate investing, and so much of it is more about the entrepreneurial journey and the mindset, which is very much appropriate for real estate investing. And it's great advice, great thought process, and I just appreciate you blessing our audience today.
For sure. Thanks for having me, brother. It was fun.
All right. Well, if you want to connect with Zach, if you want to be coached by Zach, if you just want to learn more about what he's about, again, that is going to be dfdmastery.com. I'm Kyle Malnati, the host of the Calibrate Real Estate Podcast. Our podcast producer, Kayla Davis, booked this episode. Zack Boothe, thanks so much. And as I love to say, we will see you around the neighborhood. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.